Getting situated. It's been an interesting enough afternoon and making a decision. Okay, let us let's do this. Let's switch into the main screen. Hello. I'm officially here at a time when I did not expect to be perhaps even coming around and doing it like last minute whim or whatever, but I am kind of checking back and forth between my phone, which also is going to give me access to like Discord and a couple other things that I need to kind of keep an eye on for a minute. But for the time being, I'm just sitting here getting ready to go over some of this stuff because this is definitely something that has been a bit of a time coming. So yeah. And I'm probably timestamp when like the seriousness of this whole thing begins or something like that. I have no idea. It's 2:52 p.m. and I have evening plans, so I'll be doing this for a minute and then I'll be going to do those. And then I'll be doing them all day tomorrow and probably on Sunday as well. So it's going to be a fascinating time. Brandon, how's it going? I wish I could actually like zoom the text in on the widget for Streamlabs or something, because that text is atrociously small. The only other thing I could do is just like pop up a window on the side or something like that, which I could probably just do right now and be like, whatever. Why don't we just do that? Pop out chat, bring it over, do it smart, you know? Oh, come on, let me increase the size of this. See how I can't increase the size of this? What is this? Now I can, what the hell? Okay. Not going blind, just a small ass screen on the side. And then I put it on the other screen and it just doesn't want to shrink or whatever. Oh, it wants to go up but not down. Okay, well, let's do that. I'm excited as well. This has been a long time coming personally, and it's a combo of things, actually, to be quite honest. The combo is something I'll actually probably cover in a minute, because it goes back to the beginning when I kind of started doing all the video work, and then the realization that like I had all of this content available, but for each thing, like either I knew a little or I knew a lot, but it still wasn't enough. And for like short and condensed, it didn't feel like quality, if you catch my drift on that. Primarily because I'm also using an AMD processor, which is not really beneficial for audio production. But even like the builds I've had, seem to just constantly rev up to like 45 or 4600 RPM on the fans, or sound like a jet engine. And I'm like, hell no. Like, I'm starting to get done with using an AMD build that is acting a little bit unreliable. I don't care if there's like 8th generation, as long as there's stability, and this is not entirely stable. But I'll go over that at another time probably as well. Not trying to shade AMD, but you know, a 3900X is supposed to be pretty solid for performance, along with having a 2060 Super. But even then, there's like some sort of bottleneck, and then there's some other shit that happens. And it's like, nope. Al, what is happening? How is it going? I have the EP and some of the singles queued up in Winamp, obviously, for the purpose of just like amping up. By the way, if you can hear this in the background, this is on Spotify. This is also on my YouTube channel. There's a couple of playlists that show the music releases I've done and all that kind of stuff, but not entirely the focal point for now. The focal point to me is the PDF, which is going to bring me to testing the volume here. And I'll bump the volume up just a touch. And bring up that. Okay. So that way then it's like still kind of there in the background, but it's more in the background for me. So I don't wind up losing my focus on how I kind of want to like do everything here. And I got a little bit of hydration. I've got up to until like maybe 3:30, 3:45-ish. So I'm going to try to do the best I can in keeping in with that time, because then I have to also get a shower and head south a few miles and park at a friend's house and go downtown and play some pinball and arcade machines and all that stuff. Celebratory weekend of sort. It's kind of like a religious holiday, but it's all retro video games and whatnot. So yeah. Okay, so I guess maybe like the best way I could do things right now is start by saying that I know that I have a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel here, and a lot of them are, you know, like from 2 years ago or like a year and a half, something like that. When I knew that this software was something that a lot of people might have been sleeping on, but they didn't know exactly where to go about in finding this software or how to like function with it. And I was just getting a good grasp on it around that time as well, though there was still like a couple of stipulations because of like computer tech or maybe my audio interface and whatnot. So I did the best with what I had at the time as far as video content was concerned for Link Pro, but to me it just doesn't feel like enough. And with all of the questions that were happening across the initial videos that I had, as well as the individual videos that were geared more towards just like the DAWs, like Ableton, Reaper, Cubase, and whatnot, like I figured at that time it's got to be like passable enough to help out. But to me, you know, a couple of years later, the quality just doesn't feel correct. This, I hope, is a better way of being able to sit down with you as a user of this software and give you that chance to see that I'm attempting to at least redeem on the lack of response to comments on videos and try to get you kind of situated enough to where you can use this software and get going. Because there's a lot of people that have musical talent on the internet, no matter where you go. Like somebody's got compositional skills, they've got guitar skills, they got bass or, you know, keyboard, piano, drums and whatnot. And everybody's got to try to find a method for getting their audio in, or even like getting their audio out, for example, from Ableton or Cubase, Studio One, Reaper, Pro Tools, like all this stuff. Sadly, we can't use Logic, or at least figure that one out, but that's unless you want to go Mac. Separate story for a separate time. But I got to that point where it was just like, I feel like I'm kind of screwing people over by not being as in-depth, because I have to like shorten the video content and try to be as quick as possible, like 5 or 6 minutes or less, which is what a lot of people would attribute to like shorts or like the TikTok generation. I'm not going to get into that because that to me is too political. Doesn't exactly matter at the moment. What matters is that those videos were short enough to where I figured it was helpful. Now I'm like, no, I would rather, if I had reliable hardware, I would sit here and work on making like even more than like a half-hour long video and timestamp the living hell out of it so that everybody that's using it would be able to find exactly what they were looking for, or at least like they'd be able to follow along for their DAW specifically. They'd be able to follow along for the installation process and everything. Unfortunately, my tech does not enjoy keeping up on a level like that. So I'm a little SOL on that right now, but down the line, I'll figure something out. And when that time comes along, I'll do it. But for the time being, release day. Now we're here now because I made the decision back in July or August to assemble all of this content. I wanted to make sure that the information that is provided is as accurate as possible and to the best of my knowledge, regardless of the fact that I, failed 7 out of 8 semesters of English and still don't have social skills for somehow like functioning autistic adult, which is a fact. I got to the point where it was like, you know what? This is my payback to the people that probably weren't able to follow along, or people that needed like some more clarity on certain things, and I wasn't able to maybe give it in those little bits and pieces of videos. And now we're here. So it's designed for Windows users, as it'll say on my website. It's basically just like giving you like the basic run through, is that it's made for Windows users. It's made available by the people at the link that's provided there, the first link. You can click it, go to the website and download the software and the patcher files and whatnot. Or if you're in my Discord server, you can go to, I believe it's the ALP repository channel in the ALP category, and download all of that in a zip. So they're the exact same files that are on the website. I pretty much chose to do this route because I want to preserve the software and make sure that if they happen to lose the files or somebody doesn't have them and they're not, noticing that the website's down, that they're at least somewhere. And then if I notice, I can probably help out in getting that stuff back up to them. The stuff is provided courtesy of a family member's blessing and whatnot, because the person who developed the software, from what I understand, and as far as I know, died sometime in the 2010s. So, part of the PDF also kind of pays a bit of a respect to that. So I kind of, as the kids, I guess, would call it, pressed F in a PDF. I also recommend, as it will say in the PDF, having an audio interface. You want to have something that has a supported driver. Most of those interfaces today are going to have that. It's going to be either USB 2.0, it's going to be a USB 3, or it's going to be a Type C. It doesn't matter if it's 3.1 or 3.2 or whatever. You can probably get away with the same thing with Thunderbolt 2 or Thunderbolt 3 interfaces if your motherboard supports Thunderbolt, or if you have something to introduce Thunderbolt to your PC. Windows apparently, I guess, doesn't exactly like Thunderbolt, but that's another separate thing. The release of this PDF today, version 1.0, and I'm labeling it as that because I feel it's good enough to finally get out. It's been basically done the entire week so far. I sent it off to somebody. I haven't gotten much information back about it, but we're about to go into it. And the other thing about the downloads page, as you can probably tell near the bottom, there's a link to PayPal to donate or whatever. And I mentioned, like, it's optional. I'm not going to harass you about it. It doesn't matter if it's $1, $10, whatever. It's optional. But I'm not going to be harassing you about it and telling you like, oh yeah, $5 a month, like spend your coffee money on me because I deserve it or whatever. That's not who I am, and that's not what I'm about. I just want to be able to continue doing all of this stuff. And to me, it's like anything is appreciated, but I'm not going to demand it. So there is that. As well as, until I deem the documentation a quote unquote final version, there will still be updates to come along. It's a matter of time on how many other questions or how many other variables come into play. And by doing so, like how much of that information is going to affect what's already there, how much time it's going to take to reconfigure everything, and whether or not if I want to do it as just like full version increments or if I want to do it as like small updates here and there or whatever. This documentation will rely on community feedback as far as that's concerned, commentary, and other various questions regarding the software, if anything. But for the most part, I feel like I've covered a huge base of everything. So with that being said, let's see. Yeah, right click and open a new window, or you can, I believe as well, right click and save link as. So it's going to be on my website. Links are in the description down below. Same thing with a link to the Discord server, but make sure if you do join, don't DM me or, you know, tag me or the mods or the admins, because, you know, this information should be enough to help you out with that. And there is some stuff that I'm still going to work on pretty soon here regarding the server. A spot that deals with all the PDF content and all of that other stuff. So let's go the realm of... Okay, yeah, we can do that. Just want to make sure. I want to know where I'm at with all of this. I've got plenty of time. So, full screen. This is the document. The last little bits and pieces were roughly added October 8th. The dated version 1.0 as of today. This is dated release, October 14, 2022. I am excited to say that it took very little to figure out how to do all of this stuff, including the table of contents, page number 2. So you'll be able to see that page numbers should, on some level, correlate with each other, but it's more or less in the side window on the left side. We'll go over that real quick here. Got chapters drawn up for everything. The toolbar, the DAWs and applications specifically. So the whole thing about paying respects to the family of the person who is involved in making the software. Self-introduction thing, we'll skip that. You can read that on your own time if you want. Installation, patching, getting acquainted with it, the tool setup, the routing matrix, how it functions kind of deal. The toolbar for speakers, driver, host in, driver out, mix out, routing capabilities that you can utilize with it. And I think there's, to a degree, a diagram of the routing matrix that shows you what you can do. And then we have information on Reaper, which I think is the most pages that I've used. And then started figuring out, like, maybe I can cut it down a little bit, but still be about as on par as I possibly can be. Cubase, Studio One, Ableton Live, Bitwig Studio. I've never owned it or used it or even tried it. So I have information from websites. To the best of my ability, it should work the same as Ableton as far as I understand. But the information's there. Cakewalk, Pro Tools, Discord voice chat, Discord live streaming, Zoom, Streamlabs, and OBS Studio. Right now I'm using Streamlabs to do this stream, and eventually down the road I might switch over to OBS Studio just because, whatever. A basic enough frequently asked questions based on everything that I was able to see from what's in the Discord server and some of the comments on some of the videos. I didn't go like ultra deep and check out every single comment in every video, but I did enough to kind of notice that there was a common factor in there somewhere. A little bit of troubleshooting and some additional FAQ possibly, but mostly like troubleshooting and additional information. And a page for interface suggestions, which is not shown on the table of contents. So I'm going to assume that more or less as kind of like along the lines of the additional FAQ chunk. So we have that. You can click around in there and navigate to whatever you need as quickly as possible. But for the time being, we're going to go back full screen. Hopefully this is about as viewable as it's going to get. We're going to fast forward to the one thing before like the big chunk in the meat of this whole entire document. Patience is a key element. If you take your time to absorb what is presented to you, new knowledge can be impressive to oneself when applied. Do not jeopardize your capacity for wisdom by hunting for a quick solution. All good things come with time, and all bad things can come instantly. So, kind of wanted to be like, hey, pass down a little bit of wisdom or some sort of like, I don't know, like weird anecdote or something like that. It's just how my brain's been for the last several months to a year or something. So the installation process, as far as the documentation shows, it's pretty straightforward. I'm giving you screenshots in this entire thing as well, as you may have seen in prior content regarding the launch of this whole thing. And it involves the first window that you see with the installer, which is to whether or not if you want to install 16 stereo WDM devices, which I always recommend. It makes things smoother. If you don't, the routing matrix for ALP will show like a 1 through 8 across 4 lanes rather than 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and so forth, until it's like just a huge lane of 1, 2, which basically are your stereo pairs. And then in this as well, showing you kind of like what it looks like in your sound control panel after you've installed the 16 WDM drivers, which includes speakers 01 through 16, same as mix 01 through mix 16. You can disable whatever ones you want and then correlate it to whatever the inputs and outputs are in the routing matrix. Typically, I recommend if you don't have a lot going on, start from 16 and go up until you hit something like, say, 3 or 4, 5 or 6 even if you need. But don't have every single one of them available, because it's just going to be more or less kind of like a spam thing for your list of devices, whether or not if it's in Discord or something else. And you'll have to like sit there and scroll through everything and figure it out. But there's also technical workaround on that in a feature page as well. The information regarding the patcher, I downloaded this stuff back in the end of July, and now I have a text coming in. My other buddy from the evening. We'll catch up about that a little bit later. So the patchers are x86 and x64. So essentially, if you think about it, 32-bit and 64-bit. You're going to put them in a location. It's all designated here in the documentation. These patchers are about as modern and up-to-date based on what are provided through the website specifically. And they also had this video posted, I think it was August last year. So they kind of like go over some of the stuff. They're trying to also do what I'm doing here right now, trying to clear some of the confusion about like how this whole thing works, the installation process, how to patch and everything, what it looks like once you've patched everything, and just all the additional information, right? So 2 patcher files, you'll put them in a specific location, additional instructions. This is what it should look like once you have it patched. You can test that by opening the Pro tool and not just opening up the routing matrix as a driver in your DAW. If you need any additional information, you can probably check this video out. It should be really easy to find. Because we're like paging it. You can also see a little additional information on where you can go to also rename your drivers, which I highly recommend, which I still have yet to do on this current install. Getting acquainted with everything. The Pro tool looks like this, which you don't get if you initialize ASIO Link Pro as an audio driver in your DAW. So if you're using Reaper and you select ASIO Link Pro, and then you're like, okay, now I have to select like Focusrite USB ASIO in order to get your audio to go through it, you're not going to see the Pro tool, which is the top one here. It's pretty easy to kind of like maybe figure out what you want to do with it in terms of your settings if you want it to be preferred. For me personally, based on the hardware I have, 48 kilohertz is my sample rate, 128 samples is my block size, primarily because I have like a bit of push and pull for recording, but I'm also not doing a hell of a lot until down the line. And when I do anything, I usually tend to push my sample rate in the same direction of high quality. If I'm doing 44.1K, for a separate project, I try to redo it in 48. I don't try to upscale it. And my buffer size, I go from 128 to at least 256 when I'm in the mixing phase, so that it's not hitting my CPU too hard. It's some food for thought. Everything that's basically there below the start and stop ASIO, you don't really need to mess with it too much. If it seems like it's something that you want to tweak with, go ahead and do it. But if you break it, just uninstall it, reinstall it. It should probably work fine again. Channels in and out. The ins act as mono. The outs act as stereo. So for every one in that you have is going to be a mono. For every two out that you have is going to be a stereo pair. Bearing in mind, with the image that's at the bottom, you're going to see probably like a bit of an enlarged version of this in a minute. But for every single square that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, in the driver out part, that is probably going to correlate, I think, with the routing matrix, or it's just going to say like, this is how many virtual outs and or physical / virtual outs that are being provided. So you kind of want to like pay attention to some of this stuff when you're setting it up and adjust as you need. Whenever you need to adjust, just press stop, make the tweak, and then press start. Also in this one, it shows you basically your system tray, like your taskbar thing in the lower right. If you click the up arrow, you'll see what looks sort of like a purple and a green keyboard. The purple is going to be the tool. The green is going to be the routing matrix. So pay attention to that in the documentation in the event if you kind of get lost, and you should be back on track pretty quickly. And the routing matrix, yada yada, and like we've kind of already to a degree covered. You'll see a little bit more of it a little bit later on. The toolbar, mainly all you're doing here is checking about to see if it's patched, and then picking your driver if you are using an audio interface for this whole thing. If you're not using an audio interface, I suggest getting one. Also an option, you can save and load routing matrix profiles. So if you have something for, I want to say, what is it? Brains farting because I'm going at a really fast rate. So if you have something set up for like say YouTube, and then you have like a separate idea set up for Twitch, if you have something set up for MMORPG night with your friends and you're playing Final Fantasy 14, or if you're trying to get something sort of situated because you found this really dope ass effects chain in parallel processing in Studio One or something like that, and you want to get it all routed out, you can set all of that signal chain in the matrix, and then when you need to recall it again for that specific purpose or just for that specific environment, you have it as a save file. Make sure to back them up. Also, you may or may not have GA Collected 2018 mentioned in the toolbar, but if you do, it could mean that you are patched. Maybe you're not, but don't hold me accountable on that one. The patchers that I'm providing should work solid. Speakers in kind of tells you like, hey, like this is more or less like your standard output on Windows. Like say if you don't have an audio interface, you just plug the damn thing in and you put a pair of headphones in and you're listening to music on YouTube. Essentially that's what that top green lane is. ASIO driver in should correlate to the physical and technically virtual inputs of a hardware interface. So as I mentioned maybe a few times before, I have a Focusrite 18i20. So I have 1 through 8 are all physical inputs, and then 9 and 10 are loopback ports that are provided internally so I can route something like YouTube into Reaper if I need it. The host in is basically whatever the inputs are that you have virtually and physically on your interface. They route into your DAW so that they function as if you are not even using the software. Like you're just plugging in your interface directly in. It's basically that. Driver out mix, more or less, that's kind of like your virtual output thing. For each two, it's a stereo pair. 1 and 2 more or less is like your monitoring of whatever signal's hitting it. 3-4 is a separate stereo pair, 5 and 6 is a separate stereo pair. From what I've been able to tell for God knows how long now, you don't really get a chance to monitor on those. So if you want to monitor anything, do it on 1 and 2. VAD Pro Mix Out is your virtual output. So for every 1 and 2 is a stereo output pair that virtually sends it as if it was this mic signal coming into Streamlabs and hitting your ears right now, along with whatever else is going on. The last 2 rows or like chunks or whatever at the bottom, I know nothing about, so I don't focus on those whatsoever. And if you know anything about dealing with them, it's probably like what, a Cat 5 cable and some tweakage or something like that. But I don't cover that section in this documentation because I don't know anything about it, so I want to avoid that. If you happen to know something about it and want to contribute to it, feel free. I will add whatever information you have. The routing capabilities window. This one's going to be the important one. You can see exactly where each one of these things is routing to and why there's not that much to it. So 1-to-1 red to gray box, and then 1-to-1 gray to basically like cream tannish box or whatever, green to gray, and then another green to gray. So you can go host in or mix out or driver out, whatever. Host in can go to mix out, and then another red can go to driver out. Like all of these things are visuals of, in that top section, what you can route from web browsers like Chrome or Firefox or like say video games or whatever. You can route them wherever you need to and set up whatever lanes, etc., etc. So all of that information there should be solid enough. If you continue to dig, you are striving for a goal that is possible. If you're waiting for something to happen, someone else will discover it first. The further down you go, I guarantee you will find something that will help you immensely. This is sort of like a reflection statement towards myself, but it can probably be somewhat inspirational to other people. I added it in because somebody was more or less kind of like rubbing me the wrong way about everything in regards to this whole software. And yeah, it was also kind of more or less the reason why I started doing this documentation, because I wanted to be like, hey, look, like, you want something definitive? Here you go, all in one, all or nothing. And then we have Reaper. We covered this entire section. It's 3 pages worth. So if you're a Reaper user, this could be pretty handy. Cubase, I got you covered, boo. I got you covered. It's about 2 pages. Studio One, I think it's like 1 or 2 pages. 2 pages so far. Yeah, 2 pages. So if you're a Studio One user on Windows, I got you covered, at least to the best of my ability. Ableton, it's a single page because I don't own it anymore like I used to. I sold my license for 10 a while back. I would reconsider getting back on 11, but right now it's not exactly in my financial wheelhouse for now. So, I mean, like, if they want to give me a copy of the software and want me to do some videos on it, like, I'll continue adding more of this content in. For the time being, though, there's at least 1 page. It's ultra basic, so I do apologize, but it should be solid enough to kind of get you going. Based as well on the video that I've done earlier on, about like a couple years ago, Bidwig Studio. I've never used this DAW. I have seen videos on YouTube. This is about the most basic, bare minimum that I could possibly know about it, but it should be straightforward as far as the information. So if you're a Bitwig user, I believe I have you covered. Same thing with the Ableton. I have some knowledge, but if I got something wrong here, you can correct me. I'll add it to the document. Same thing with Bitwig Studio. Cakewalk. This one is a total bitch to set up. I promise you that. But if you're hell-bent on using Cakewalk, then this could take you quite some time. I originally started out with Pro Audio 9 back in 98, 99, roughly. And I loved that software when I was growing up. What it's evolved into now is something that I just don't really benefit from, personally. It's a great free DAW, though, so don't skip out on it if you don't have the money to exactly, like, shell, like, a license to Reaper or whatever, or if you don't have the money to afford Avid Pro Tools, like, a whole $1,000 a year for, like, max tier Pro Tools Action or whatever. Or if you're like, I just can't afford like the 30 or 40 a month for just like the mid-tier ultimate something, whatever. Cakewalk will take quite a bit of time to set up because it'll continuously open and close the driver as you're adding, as far as I know. Pro Tools, I no longer will have this installed in my system. It's not me personally crapping on the software. I'm just crapping on the subscription concept and how it feels like it's just up there in terms of like shutting some people out. Because who's gonna pay $30 a month to be on something like that and it doesn't support things that other platforms do? I use VSTs like crazy, and if they're natively supported in something like Cubase or whatever, I'm gonna use it. But if you happen to use this should get you set up as far as understanding how to run ALP and Pro Tools at the same time. You'll have to do it for multiple things, such as your input, your output. I don't think you have to do it for bus, because bus is still kind of like an internal thing. Same thing with inserts, mic preamp, etc., or whatever they've done in terms of their software updates or whatever. FL Studio, this one is ultimately like short like this. There will be more information to come along at some point, I'm pretty sure, because there's a bit that's kind of left out. You can set this whole thing up, but you want to not auto close your audio driver. And when you end up, as far as I understand this, the way that I last tested it, if you go in to your mixer in FL Studio and you start adding in lines, like say input 1, your microphone, input 2, a synthesizer, input 3 and 4, guitar and bass guitar. Every time that you add these in or take them out from that channel's input, what you're going to get is the driver's going to close so that it can adjust for that and then reopen with that, and you have to reroute everything again. So if you do such, make sure that you create whatever routing matrix thing that you need, save it, and then load it again later on once you get all that stuff together. Stumbling over self. Discord voice chat, huge list from when I had everything installed before, yada yada. As you can tell, there's like Focusrite, there's speakers, which is basically the VAB Pro driver, and that's on both the mix and the speaker side. Your list will look that huge unless you organize. So again, tip on why you should go into all your sound settings and sort that out. But this should be enough information to help you figure out how to route everything into voice chat. And then the next part deals with Discord streaming. Why is the document now in full screen? It already has been. Thanks for the notification. But yeah, so setting up with audio input capture, desktop audio, mic aux 2, etc., I more or less set everything up through the like the setup wizard thing or whatever in OBS Studio. The same stuff should work the same in Streamlabs as well, but like they both function the same, but they have a different approach on how you more or less set everything up or where you find everything. But it's all information on how to get all of your audio related stuff going. And then apparently I didn't have a second page for it yet, but this all deals with how you also are going to use a windowed preview of whatever you got going on and set Discord to stream that window. So you also can see what you're doing in, say, Reaper, but it's dictating what's going on in that window the entire time. As long as you're capturing your full screen, you're good. And the audio should go through. It's a weird ass sounding workaround, but I promise you it works. It may take a minute, but it works. And then we have Zoom meetings, because some people do use Zoom to either teach music lessons or to kind of like jam a couple of ideas back and forth. Maybe it's the way that they record in studio or something like that. If that were the case, that's cool and whatnot. Not complaining. Do as you need to do in order to get your point across. But you'll notice how you have select a microphone. Microphone are mixes and speakers are speakers. So your speakers are your output, microphone's obviously an input. Mix is always associated as an input slash virtual microphone. Speaker is basically your virtual output slash virtual stereo sound and all that stuff. You set everything, you route it, and you should be good. The only thing that I can possibly think of in the long term is how Zoom may also have a feature similar to like how Discord has crisp. Discord has its own noise cancellation stuff in it, and it may act on either one end or both ends. Not 100% sure. I may get a chance to try this again real soon with somebody, and if so, I'll see what I can do and update based on that. And they'll be contributing to virtual audio science, I guess, or something like that. But the information there should be helpful enough to get you kind of going as far as your Zoom meetings, if you're hanging out with bandmates or if you're teaching something. So as much detail as possible. Streamlabs and OBS Studio and ASIO Link Pro, all in, you know, like one heavy ass title. So this should give you a chance to go through, you know, like what you do with Streamlabs or with OBS Studio, how to basically set up your audio output capture and your audio input capture. They're going to be marked equally as AOC and AIC. And because typing the whole entire thing out is just going to be like, you have a couple of options for speakers or mix. Obviously, those would be output should be speaker, input should be mix. And adjusting all of the appropriate things based on what's in your mixer, going into advanced audio settings and checking what your device is, time stamping it, down mixing to mono or not. If it's a stereo signal, definitely don't mix it down to mono unless if there's no real reason to use stereo because where you're sending the signal to is not stereo capable, such as Discord voice chat. Monitoring and output and all that kind of stuff, which is it's a necessity of sort when you're doing Discord live streaming. So bear that in mind. If you have a mono signal, such as this microphone, for example, I have it going out as a mono. So if I'm live streaming on Twitch or YouTube, it's mono for a purpose. I may have like a couple of other things, but they don't bleed through. I'll go over some of that in another video in the future at some point. But then like additional things such as, you know, how it's here, because this was Streamlabs, so this is OBS Studio. So it's kind of small, but you kind of see the same exact thing. You have your sources, your audio mixer. With the update to OBS Studio, they've introduced something that I was expecting would have been there before, or maybe it was there and I just didn't notice it. But you select one of your sources and it tells you whether or not if you want to go to properties or filters and what device or like what window it is, I guess, which is actually really cool because then you can kind of on the fly with it. Going into the properties and selecting the device if you choose not to opt in for the one in the previous image, and then figuring out the same deal in advanced audio properties as far as audio monitoring, whether or not if you want the source to be in mono or stereo, panning, which is something I don't think was in Streamlabs, and all of that other stuff. And then basic enough FAQ, some stuff such as thanking the individual for developing the software, also crediting Johnny McBee at the Browning for kind of a few pointers back when I was trying to figure out how to do some of this stuff. Some other stuff like what DAWs do I primarily use or what am I proficient with or whatever. Cubase, Reaper, Studio One. I'm not as much of a pro with Studio One, but I'm going to get there at some point. Not as much of a pro with Cubase, but I'm starting to get there. Everybody says I'm a pro at Reaper. I kind of beg to differ. I know a bunch of other people that are more pro. Can you run it with ASIO for all? What about other DAWs? The patcher files disappeared. Are they viruses? No, they're not. Is there an update to the software, the patchers? Chances are there is. Some people may have, you know, gone rogue and done their own little thing to it to make it more stable, whatever, or at least more secure. Can it work with audio drivers for Windows? It probably can, but I recommend getting an audio interface. Can it work with voice meter banana? I don't recommend. It's basically the same thing except voice meter adds latency on top. Let's see here. It doesn't look my ALP window doesn't look like yours. How do I fix that? Chances are you probably didn't deal with the installation process the same. Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of the same thing with like if you get a red bar at the top with X's in it, saying which is basically saying like, yeah, like this isn't working. That's something that I still need to figure out at some point. Do I have a Discord server? Yes, I do. Can you contact me in a DM on Discord about everything? I made an announcement in that category that as of roughly July 22nd, I think, I'm no longer fielding stuff privately. There is a channel in there that you can still drop some information in. Just don't tag me, don't tag the admins or the mods or whatever. We kind of have our own things going on. The last thing we want to do is and just get like the sudden notice, like, huh, okay. Or people that come in and they berate my team because they don't know anything and have like a sense of entitlement. I don't deal with that kind of stuff with people. Be humble, be responsible, you know. Troubleshooting the boxes with the X in them, I honestly am unsure. Is there a way to route YouTube and desktop audio separately? Realistically, there can be. I'm not sure, but you know, that question was confusing, so I kind of included it anyways and tried to answer the best of my ability. Having issues trying to send the voice through ALP to Discord. Only have a laptop mic, yada yada. How do I remove X amount of virtual connections? I give some information there as well. Audio interface suggestions. I know Focusrite tends to be a huge thing here, but at the same time, there's also Presonus, the Studio 24C, the Mo2 M4 4X4. There's a variety of other interfaces that are on this level that are like ultimately the basic bare bones that you would need that have supported drivers. I would recommend getting something in this line at the bare minimum. If you need more inputs, you know, go for something a little bit higher. I have yet to find out whether or not if Universal Audio or SSL is supported as far as their drivers in this whole thing. But at some point I'll figure out that information. Maybe I'll have money to buy these things or just get like units donoed, and then I'll make a Frankenstein computer to put everything on and test every little bit and give you a list of like what works, what doesn't. And then obviously at the very tail end of it all is just, you know, a thank you thing, yada yada. Version 1.0 is indeed the initial release with more questions or other various things related to ALP. The more that can be crammed into updates to the document and released accordingly. Updates will be announced on YouTube and they will be made to the document. So please, you know, at the same time, like, subscribe, hit the bell. You'll know when those updates come around. And yeah, let's see here. If you have any questions regarding anything in the document, leave them in the comments of this video specifically. The VOD should be available typically within 24 to 36 hours or so after the stream's over with, as far as I remember. If you're on my Discord server and you go to the ALP channel, please don't tag me or the admins or the mods. I'll try to respond as soon as I can. I do notice when my server lights up, but I have a few others that I am more focused in because of my responsibilities and my duties in them. DMs, I do tend to get quite a few, so the last thing I want to do is be distracted and be like, oh, you know, like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm busy at the moment. Maybe I can get back to you in, you know, like 25 minutes if I have the time after things get resolved, if there's an issue or whatever. Some days it's quiet, some days it's busy as hell. Read the category announcement completely. If you do join the Discord server, it is in the ASIO Link Pro category because that information is significantly important. If you DM an admin or moderator and you know, throw off some unwarranted self-entitlement or importance or whatever, it is going to be met with a ban. They kind of know this because the last thing that they deserve is you raging out at them and being a total asshole when all I want to do is just, you know, keep everything smooth, serene, peaceful on some level. Can have a sense of humor, not a big deal, but, you know, be within the lines, play it smart, be cool, be chill. If you're going to be a, you know, a cunt or whatever, then I don't want you around because that's not my lifestyle right now. My style in life right now is this whole document, getting you where you need to go with all your virtual audio routing needs, or at least helping you with that, and making sure that on whatever level necessary, that you find some sort of inspiration to succeed at whatever it is that you want to do. that's basically almost an entire hour or so of me ranting bullshit. So now it's time to sit back, relax a minute, field a few questions, and then I need to get a shower and drive south a little bit so I can go and put my fist on a pinball arcade or some other whatever. That was one hell of a run. I'll definitely say that. For the time being as well, let's just put this on in the background. Why not, right? Some audio in the background. Say hello and all that stuff. Yeah. My brain has scattered. Time to recenter a little bit. So, yeah. The PDF is available on my website. Links in the description down below. I will not provide it in Discord just yet. During the weekend, I'm going to be really busy. The last thing I want to do is just kind of like have it there. So I'm guiding people to the website first and foremost. And maybe sometime next week, I'll put the PDF up for people in Discord. But it'll be available only to those with the appropriate role to get access to the file. Just simply because, like, I want to keep things filtered out and all that fun stuff. But yeah, howdy do. I had that text message 29 minutes ago, so I've been rambling on for about over a half an hour solid, and not bad. It's been one hell of a run. Double checking my Discord. I have, there's somebody hanging out that I actually wanted to say hello to because they're going to be going to work, but I'll have to hit them up right before I wind up winding down on everything. I'm assuming at the same time, let's see here. My apologies, I'm like all over the place. Last minutes, everything's etc. I want to check that. Yeah. Scrolling down. Okay. Minimize. Okay. So where I sit at right now, I got another couple of minutes left, and then I'm gonna end stream. And then yeah. So for those that miss out, this should be a VOD. And for those of you that came around, hung out for a minute, sat tight. Hope this information does come to whatever help, and that you wind up telling friends or whatever. If it helps you out, maybe it might help them out. If they, can get through the entire like 50 plus some odd whatever pages of the document. There will be updates to it as time goes on, guaranteed. And yeah, I hope that it helps you for real, because this took me longer than I anticipated just to get it done. But I want it to be as comprehensive as possible, and it's why it's deemed like whatever the basic definitive or whatever. It may not be from the company direct or the organization or whatever, but it's enough data to get you going. Who knows, maybe they might even wind up taking the file and hosting it. I have no idea. I would hope that if that happened, there would be at least some sort of like kickback credit wise, rather than just being like, oh yeah. Because I know a lot of people that would just be like, oh yeah, like take my file and like give me money or something like that. I know a lot of people like that, and I am more or less kind of strayed from them lately. They are straining themselves. Content for a future video. Almost 3:45 p.m. and it's been a good time. So yeah, again, link in the description down below for if you want to join the Discord. Make sure to read the onboarding, read the rules, read the category announcement for the ALP category. A link to the website down below. This is my official website that's on the screen right now. You can find that, and then right click and download the PDF from the website directly, or open in a new tab or whatever, and use that as a basic manual to kind of get yourself acquainted with everything as far as ALP is concerned, and then see where you can utilize it for your virtual audio routing needs and whatnot. And if anything else, I don't know exactly if they do like a mention tag or whatever in comments or in like video titles or whatever, but if you get something working and it's solid, just let me know by throwing me a comment on this video, or do a mention or something like that. I'll see it, I'm pretty sure, and I'll see exactly how you're doing things, and we'll work on moving forward and making history. So that's basically where I'm at. In the meantime, yes, I am about late to the party, so I'm going to leave it to you. You have this video, and at this point, now you know what to do with it. So, hope you enjoy the remainder of your morning, evening, or afternoon whenever you are viewing this. If you're watching the VOD, for those of you that are currently there in live chat, which is more or less kind of like dead at this point, not a big deal. I was hoping that there'd be enough people to kind of have some future interaction with, but it takes time to build that. I'm not looking for numbers, I'm looking for helping people out. In the meantime, y'all take it easy, and I'll see you again soon.